Hi, my name is Dr. Richard Herbold, and I'm really pleased to be with you today. And today we're going to talk about a really important part of physiology, and that's digestion. Digestion is probably the biggest physiological problem that I confront on a regular basis with patients with chronic diseases and conditions. So let's talk a little bit about how digestion occurs. Digestion is a process that starts in our brain. We start thinking about food as we smell food. That primes the pump for our physiology to change. If you've ever chewed on a piece of gum and fooled your brain into thinking that something was coming down the pike, you might notice that your stomach starts to gurgle, and then after a while the brain figures out that, well, nothing's coming down, so it stops doing that. Chewing, smelling, tasting are all neurological components of digestion. So digestion is a critical component to maintaining our physiology and survivability, and yet it's compromised in so many ways, shapes, and forms by the food that we eat, the water that we drink, the beverages, our exposure to chemicals. So it's a pretty complicated problem. Our digestive process starts in maturation when we're little babies, and that's usually when things start to become problematic. So we're born into this world with what we call a permeable gut. A permeable gut is basically when our digestive tube has the ability to take the proteins from the foods that we're consuming and bring it through the food tube itself, the digestive tube, to the outside, to the bloodstream for nutrification. So this permeable gut has to close as we develop if we want to survive. So initially, breast milk, which is the primary fuel that we're designed to consume, which sometimes people get, sometimes people don't get, or developing children. And this breast milk could in fact be cross-contaminated by the food that mom is eating as well too. So colic is a common phenomenon. Colic is certainly something that's a problem for a lot of people, and there's a lot of pieces to that discussion. Colic could very well be what mother is eating during the pregnancy and during the breastfeeding time, if she's lucky enough or the baby's lucky enough to get that. So understand that digestion is a very complicated mechanism, starting in our brain, starting when we're infants, and then maturation of the tube itself or development happens either completely or not. Once we've closed the junctions of the intestinal tube itself, this selective membrane, which then says you can come across and you can't, is greatly dependent on the amount of hydrochloric acid in our stomach. Hydrochloric acid is produced in our stomach, and then it breaks down our protein into small little amino acids if it works correctly. Those amino acids then pass through the intestinal membrane, that's how it's supposed to work, get into the bloodstream, and then nutrify the system after it's gone through the liver and through processing. So as you can imagine in this brief explanation, digestion is a pretty complicated process. So it's no surprise when people don't digest successfully or completely. We become a society of dependency on digestive aids, whether it be Mylanta or proton pump inhibitors or hydrochloric acid inhibitors. And it's socially acceptable with Larry the Cable Guy to say, listen, you don't really need to change your diet. All you need is the magic pill. So we're constantly battling this in natural medicine to change our mindset of how we need to address faulty digestion. So understand this is a complicated mechanism. It's a complicated subject, and on subsequent videos we're going to be talking a lot more about how to remediate such a complicated issue. So I hope this small little background is helpful as an introduction to where digestion occurs and how it occurs. Thank you again for joining me. This is Dr. Richard Herbold, and I'm so pleased to be with you.